President Trump back at the White House tonight after his ride along through the D.C. streets. It was quite a sight. Trump joined police and National Guard troops at their local command center. The president touted his efforts to restore law and order to the nation's capital.
We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe. And we're going to then go on to other places. But we're going to stay here for a while. We want to make this absolutely perfect. It's our capital.
Stay here for a while is an important point. We'll get to it in a minute. Right now, there are nearly 2,000 guardsmen from D.C. and 6 Republican-led states stationed all across the District of Columbia. The White House reports D.C. hasn't had a murder in over a week. That's the first time that's happened. No murder for a week in more than 150 days. For context, D.C. is averaging about 3 murders per week this year, significantly higher than, say, New York City. With that, we welcome you to the program on a very busy day. Nice to have you along. This hour, we're covering the president's federal takeover from all angles. Kelly Meyer live for us at the White House. We'll also be joined by Attorney Tom Dupree, Congressman Gabe Evans, Congressman Adam Smith on the issue. Later, Jillian Michaels joins us for her very first TV interview since being accused of racism by CNN anchor Abby Phillips. But first, Trump's visit is just the latest example of the president escalating his fight with Democrats over everything, but he thinks that this fight over the crackdown on crime is a winning one. Trump's decision to visit the Guard wasn't meant for the folks living in the district. It was meant for you in the middle of America. 80% of the people living in D.C. despise the takeover, despite the fact that crime is down substantially. It goes to show you how real the hatred for President Trump is in D.C. There's a number of people in D.C. who would prefer more crime to Donald Trump getting a win. The president is portraying a strong-on-crime persona to the rest of the nation. And the message is a dare, if you will, to Democratic mayors and governors who let crime run rampant. Number one, he's going to call them out. But number two, basically, he's saying that if you don't clean up your cities, I, President Trump, will do it for you. That's our Why It Matters segment tonight. By deploying the National Guard, Trump set out to clean up the district, but he also picked a fight with Democrats. Rather than fight crime, they decided to fight him, and that is exactly what Donald Trump wanted. It goes to show Democrats are solely concerned with fighting the president, no matter the circumstances. Trump will point that out at every turn, and history tells us Trump wins that battle every single time. And Democrats will take the bait every single time. So in this case, Trump will argue Democrats no longer care about keeping people safe. And to be fair, they used to.
Making the streets safe is not a Democratic or Republican issue. They must be taken off the street.
There must be no doubt about whose side we're on. People who commit crimes should be caught, convicted, and punished.
We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy.
If we're going to go after folks who are here illegally, we should do it smartly and go after folks who are criminals, gangbangers, people who are hurting the community.
So consider the contrast. I am not one to give political advice, but Democrats could be spending this time talking to average Americans about how they are going to improve the economy. Our segments about high prices, which are a real thing and continue to be a real thing in America, those segments are consistently the highest rated. People care. Democrats could be talking about how to improve people's lives. Instead, they choose to bemoan how bad Donald Trump is. It's not working. In a moment, we'll break down Trump's plan to expand National Guard deployments to other cities nationwide. We'll also hear from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. We begin tonight with NewsNation's Kelly Meyer, live at the White House, where Trump just returned. Good evening, Kelly.
Hey there, Leland. So the president here at the White House and just wrote on Truth Social just in the past few minutes. He wrote, quote, "Make Washington, D.C. great again," along with a picture of him speaking to National Guardsmen and local police. And the president says He's solved D.C.'s crime problem in just 4 days. So since the operation started, the White House tells us there have been 630 total arrests, and law enforcement has taken 86 firearms off the streets. During his visit today, the president thanked the Guard while also giving us new details about his planned, what he calls, beautification of D.C. He says he wants to make the district look like one of his golf clubs. Take a listen.
You do the job on safety, and I'll get this place fixed up physically, and we're going to be so proud of it at the end of 6 months. But let's say at the end of a year, this place will be maxed out in terms of beauty.
So President Trump says he wants to redo the medians, redo the pavement, take down the graffiti, fix the signs, and redo the parks with sprinklers. He says he'll go back to Congress for more cash. And on top of his day job, the president is really taking on this role of city planner in chief so far in his second term. Leland.
All right, Kelly Meyer at the White House. Thank you. Bring in Tom Dupree, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under George W. Bush, Congressman Gabe Evans, Republican from Colorado. Gents, good to see both of you. Counselor, start with you first. Trump just said, and we heard it in the soundbite when he was out at visiting the Guard, we're going to stay here for a while. How long can he stay?
Well, in one sense, Leland, he can stay for 30 days from the time he went in. There are certain laws that give the president the power to control local law enforcement in D.C. that expires at the end of 30 days. It can be extended, of course, but at least there's going to be a 30-day benchmark. But there are also powers that he can exercise beyond 30 days. So I think it would be a mistake to think that once that 30-day period passes, the president's authority completely evaporates. I suspect, though, that at the 30-day mark, everyone, people in the administration, others will take a look at how things have been progressing. So far, as you reported, the early returns seem to be good and that there does seem to be a decrease in crime. It's possible that there'll be some momentum to try to extend that 30-day period, depending on how things are going.
Congressman Evans, we made the point that this is really not about talking to the people of Washington, D.C. It's one of the most liberal cities in the country. I think it voted well north of 80% for Donald Trump. I'm wondering what you're hearing in Colorado. I think about Denver, a city I used to live in, love dearly, that also has had its own problems with progressive Democratic prosecutors and mayors who have allowed crime to get out of hand. Are there any constituents coming up to you saying, hey, will Trump do in Denver what he did in D.C.?
Well, you can see my background right behind me. I spent 10 years as a cop in the Denver metro area. I was in the Colorado Army National Guard for almost 12 years. And public safety is something that is critically important to my constituents and to folks around the country. And we're seeing in Washington, D.C. right now that core message of Republicans being reinforced. Republicans are about public safety, keeping our communities safe, getting the murder rate down, getting the carjacking rate down, getting the auto theft rate down, and making sure that we have safe places to live, to work, and to raise families. That's something that the president is doubling down on. That's a message by which I actually flipped a seat against a Democrat incumbent here in Colorado because folks want to feel safe in their own neighborhoods. That's what the president's doing, and that's a core part of the Republican message.
I'm sure that's an answer to the question about what's happening in D.C. I was a little bit more focused on Denver and how people out there are looking at it from outside looking in. Tom, what does this mean for other cities? The implicit argument is there from Trump to say my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, where the murder rate is double that of D.C. But does he have the option to do this in other American cities?
Leland, he does, although with one caveat that I'll get to in a moment. But you're absolutely right that I think what we are seeing in D.C. is almost a test program that, if successful, I would imagine President Trump is going to try to roll out in other cities across America. Certainly, Washington, D.C. is not the only big city in America with a serious crime problem. The one caveat I would give is that the District of Columbia is governed by a special system of laws that do give the president authority to do what he's doing, to come in, to basically federalize local local law enforcement and essentially take over the functions of the D.C. Police Department when the regular police department can't handle it. He doesn't have the same legal authority if you're talking about other cities in the United States. Washington, D.C. is unique. It's special. I think he's going to be slightly more restricted in what he can do in other states, but I don't think that's going to limit this administration from trying to duplicate what they're doing in D.C. and other states if this proves successful.
Congressman Evans, there's an argument to be made here that this is another example of even a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate giving away their powers to an increasingly powerful executive. Why would Republicans in Congress, if you feel so strongly about crime in D.C., which I do as well, it's a huge problem, why didn't you all take the lead on this? Why not put legislation through Congress and up for debate about allowing a long-term federal presence in D.C.?
I think Congress absolutely has put forth legislation and actually had legislation signed into law to make not just the District of Columbia, but all of the United States safer again. Look no further than what we did in the Big Beautiful Bill, where we allocated $750 million to FLETC. So that's the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, basically police academy for federal agents, because we know we need more bandwidth, we know we need more law enforcement, and we know we need to be able to recruit and retain the federal law enforcement that we have to be able to go out and do things like clean up Washington, D.C., to do things like clean up Denver, Colorado. You asked, what's the feeling on the ground in Denver, Colorado? I'll tell you. Earlier this week, we had very public federal indictments announced against 30 Tren de Aragua, so that's the Venezuelan prison gang. We had public indictments announced against these individuals as a result of a lot of the work that the federal agencies, the DEA and the FBI have done.
Yeah, it's a little different than what Trump is doing. Congressman, thank you very much. Tom Dupree, appreciate it. Good to see both of you with us now. Congressman Adam Smith, Democrat from Washington, ranking member on the Armed Forces Committee. Congressman, I think we can all agree that crime being down is a good thing. I know you're going to take issue with how it is being done. But from a political sense, when you see a president fighting crime in a city where local government has been unsuccessful and there's gangs of carjackers rolling around, I would think being on the other side of that would have to worry any politician. Why doesn't it worry Democrats?
Yeah, I'm not on the other side of it to begin with. And lumping all Democrats together on this, I think, is a bit of a mistake. Yeah, we want to see crime down. We want to see efforts to do that. Now, there's a couple of facts that don't widely get reported. First of all, Oklahoma City, Republican-run city, has a higher violent crime rate than Washington, D.C. There are at least a dozen Republican-run cities that also are struggling with crime. I think the myth that this is somehow uniquely a Democratic-run city problem is something that, admitting your point, Republicans have done a very good job of spinning that and not being honest about the facts, first of all. Second of all, yes, we need to do more about crime. And I will fully say I've been working out here in Seattle, Washington, and elsewhere to make some changes in the policy for greater accountability, greater personal responsibility. Mistakes were made, and I think we ought to acknowledge those. The thing about Trump, though, is, I mean, they're setting up checkpoints in Washington, D.C. Do Americans want that in their cities, whether you're committing a crime or not?
Look, Congressman, I know people. This checkpoint thing is somehow a new thing. I drove through a Metropolitan Police Department, a D.C. MPD checkpoint 6 weeks ago, well before any of this happened. I didn't hear anybody crying about it. So, but hold on, just let me finish here. Well, you've got a situation. Well, hold on. The top 15 cities. I think 14 of the top 15 American cities ranked by murder rate are blue cities. So I understand your point about Oklahoma City, but hold on, let me just ask a question here. You've got a situation now where even today,
you're making a statement. But go ahead.
I'm going to ask a question. You got a situation today where Trump was given a huge win by the New York Court of Appeals. The $500 million civil fraud judgment was thrown out.
I'm still waiting
Democrats,
for the question.
Tish James went over. It's easier to ask a question when you don't get interrupted, but here's the question. Do you worry that Democrats are fighting against Donald Trump rather than being seen as fighting for the American people?
If you give me a second, first of all, your notion that somehow there's nothing different about what's happening in D.C. from what happened 6 weeks ago is simply incorrect. There are massive checkpoints all over the place that are definitely interfering with the individual rights of people in the city. So, Do we want that? Do you want that in Denver? Do you want that in St. Louis? Do you want that level of police presence? Also, do you want the United States military to show up in your town and enforce the law? I would love to see more police. I would love to see a lot more people enforcing the law. Look, I don't disagree with you as much as you seem to be saying that I do. All right, but to just blow past all of this like it doesn't matter, like if Donald Trump,
the military thing is. The military thing is a real thing.
If Donald Trump wants to drop the United States Marines down in the middle of Denver or St. Louis, should we all go, yay, Trump?
No, I think the military issue, you're agreeing with me, I'm agreeing with you. The military issue is a real one. Congressman, we always appreciate you being, hold on. Go ahead. You get the last 30 seconds, but we got to run.
On crime. Sorry. Point of crime is, look, you're right. We need to do a better job at dealing with crime in cities across this country. I have said that, and I don't agree with Democrats who say, oh, crime's not a problem, we shouldn't pay attention to it. We should, and we need to do a better job on it. Okay. But just criticizing Trump for that piece doesn't mean that we're saying crime isn't a problem. So, yeah, absolutely, we need to deal with it, but let's be concerned about the way it's being done.
Come talk to us in studio sometime, and we'll have more time. Congressman Adam Smith, good to see you as always, sir. Thank you. President Trump threw shade on Putin's claim he wants peace in Ukraine. Will Trump now send Kyiv more and deadlier weapons to strike deep into Russia? He should. The evidence when we come back. Despite alleged peace talks coming, Russia just launched its biggest wave of attacks against Ukraine in weeks. The overnight bombing of an American electronics plant injured over a dozen civilians. Note I said an American-owned factory. Putin knew exactly what he was doing and hitting. Just a week ago, President Trump was preparing to head to Alaska with hopes of an immediate ceasefire. Since then, the situation has gotten worse, not better, on the ground. And now there's a growing demand that Putin face consequences. After the attack last night, President Trump went to Truth Social telling Ukraine to ramp up the stakes and attack Russia. He wrote, quote, "It is very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports that has a fantastic defense but is not allowed to play offense. There is no chance of winning. It is like that with Ukraine and Russia. Crooked and grossly incompetent Joe Biden would not let Ukraine fight back, only defend. How did that work out? Interesting times ahead." Ambassador Bill Taylor, former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, with us now, along with Democratic strategist, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Joel Rubin. Joel, it's going to get hard for Democrats to criticize Donald Trump if he starts giving Ukraine more weapons than Joe Biden did, right?
Well, you bet. But don't forget that after Putin invaded in 2022, Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin a genius for that. And I got to say, look, Leland, this is a major slap in the face of President Trump. He literally rolled out the red carpet last week. He talked to Putin. He said no more sanctions. He's going to back off on calls for a ceasefire. And this is Putin's response to bomb Ukraine, hit an American factory. And so Trump's really boxed himself in, and that's the own goal that I'm worried about. He needs to get out of this box. He needs to restore credibility and leverage. Yesterday's statement is a part, but I don't really know where that fits in the strategy. So we need a better, more proactive, aggressive strategy
Ambassador,
to really send a message.
I got to get this from you, though. What is the need of Ukraine? What can Ukraine do? What can the U.S. do for Ukraine? Interesting times ahead signals something, does it not?
I think it does. They are going to be interesting times, Leland. What Ukraine needs right now is a ceasefire, which, as you said, President Trump had in mind when he went to talk to President Putin last Friday. And it sounds like to me that the Europeans and the Ukrainians and President Trump agreed earlier this week ceasefire is the way to go. And so what he needs to do is put real pressure on Putin. It is a slap in the face. Putin does need to be pushed very hard economically as well as militarily to come to the table and negotiate a ceasefire.
Yeah, the lack of response is bewildering. We've seen when Trump was insulted before and played, felt humiliated, was humiliated that he came out. This was Vladimir Zelensky, president of Ukraine, a little while ago.
Of course, we are doing and will continue to do everything necessary to protect our state and people. The U.S. president is absolutely right. This must be done not only in defense.
Joel, I hear two things, that Ukraine needs to fight back and you need a ceasefire. So in terms of sending a message to Putin, giving the Ukrainians some serious weaponry would help, would it not?
It certainly would. Look, Vladimir Putin came to meet with President Trump on the heels of several weeks of President Trump threatening to increase sanctions and put pressure on Putin. And then President Trump pulled that back. He needs to restore that language, stick to his guns on it, push for more sanctions, allow the congressional sanctions to go forward that has like 90 co-sponsors nearly in the Senate. That's what's going to help restore the deterrence that Putin needs to feel in order to get to a ceasefire.
Ambassador, interesting times ahead is probably not enough of a threat to get Putin's attention, right?
No, it does need pressure. It needs real pressure. Just exactly what we've been talking about here. Long-range weapons, that will do it. Serious sanctions continue. He's already put some on India. That's good. And I agree with Joel. That's why Putin wanted this meeting, because he was scared. He was spooked by those sanctions. Trump has leverage. He's got cards.
Yep. All right. Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate you both. Brief answers, excellent insight. We'll see you soon.